Toronto. So joining us now for his first check-in weekly of the year with BT, it's Mayor John Tory. Good morning, Mayor Tory. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Tammie. Thank you.
Happy New Year. And you started
Same to
off
you.
the new year, of course, with this latest operating budget being released, the proposed budget itself. And the big headline, the big takeaway has been this 5.5% property tax increase. And this is happening during a time where people are clearly struggling. You did acknowledge that this has been a tough budget, and you realize that this is tough for people to bear. But what do you say to those people who have been struggling immensely over the last few months and now have to face yet another increase here?
Well, I say, first of all, that we kept the operating budget property tax increase below the rate of inflation, and we could have actually asked for more just because the need is there. And people know what the needs are, whether it's public safety, transit, housing. Secondly, I would say that the principal preoccupation of the budget, from my standpoint, was to protect frontline services. And I think we could do, more damage to people in terms of their well-being in the city if we cut those services. I mean, there were proposals of all kinds to cut services that people really do rely on. And thirdly, I would say that we expanded a number of those services. We made investments, thanks to the fact we're going to have this tax increase of 5.5% below the rate of inflation, whether it's community safety, housing, transit. We've given increased funding to all of those. And then finally, I'll mention the city itself is not immune from that inflation. Like our bill to fuel the buses and the ambulances and the fire trucks and so on is going up $46 million. Just that by itself, that's more than 1.5 points of property tax. So we have to deal with the realities of being able to put gas and diesel fuel in these vehicles. And so if you put all that together, it just meant it wasn't possible for us, for example, to freeze taxes. And the same policy of having an inflation or less tax increase produced in previous years when inflation was at 0.9%, an increase that was tiny. And it's just now the same principle of saying we're going to keep it below the rate of inflation, produce this number that's higher. And I'm sorry for that, but I have to preserve the frontline services because I think that's what people want as much as anything else.
You talk about frontline services, expanding those, as well as community safety. There has been an approved budget for the Toronto Police Service of $48 million additional, putting them well over $1 billion for this annual budget. There has been a lot of criticism about this, saying that 50 million, or at least a portion of it, can go towards the root causes of violence rather than the enforcement. What do you say to that?
I say that I don't understand why people always make it an either or choice. We're doing both. But, I think when you say there's a lot of critics out there, the only critics I don't hear from are the people. Because the people tell me when I go into all neighborhoods, and this is of all different kinds, for all different reasons, that they believe that in light of current circumstances, that we need more police, especially when it comes to things like neighborhood officers. They are a part of changing the way we do policing and keeping neighborhoods safe, where you have an officer walking the beat in a neighborhood, staying there for 3 or 4 years to get to know people and to have people get to know them. So it's part of restoring trust where it's been lost. But I would just say, to those out there, Councillor Matlow, for example, is a great leader on talking about not supporting the police budget, and even has proposed in the past defunding the police. And I will tell you, I am not going there. I campaigned during the election on not defunding the police and on supporting the police, as well as investing in kids and families and getting some of the laws changed, like these bail laws that are just not working for us. And I will carry through on the things that I said I would do. And so that's why the police are getting an increase, which is less, by the way, than what the transit system is getting. It is less than what the paramedics are getting, but they're getting an increase because I think they need one to keep the city safe, which is one of my principal responsibilities.
Will you use your strong mayor powers if you don't get the support in council to pass this budget next month?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I think that the budgets have always been passed. This is my 9th budget as mayor, and I hope that we can use the same kind of collaboration and discussion. I've had some good discussions with councillors already, and the budget is proposed, and now it's going to get public input. Next week, people can come out and make representations on it. It's going to get lots of councillor input, and I hope we can sort the thing out that way, because that's the best way to do it. But, on some of these things that I feel very strongly about, like investing in housing, like investing in transit, and including some additional support for the police, I just think these things have to get done so that we can keep a safe, healthy city on its road to recovery. And we need help from the other governments too, by the way.
That is also something that's in the budget, but there hasn't been really that commitment to getting Toronto out of the financial hole that has been built up throughout the pandemic. And so there's relying on that as well. Lastly, because we're out of time, I just want to touch on the Toronto traffic issue that we've been talking about this morning. This new survey putting Toronto 7th worst in the world when it comes to traffic, worse than LA. Your thoughts on that and thoughts on people spending 118 hours on average in traffic in their cars here in Toronto?
It's not a list you want to be on. It's not a way you want to be spending all of those 118 hours. I mean, people are going to spend some time in traffic if they choose to drive. And the number one thing we need to do is keep building the transit that we're building. We're building $30 billion worth of transit so that people don't have to take their cars. But we're going to be announcing quite shortly some additional measures to have more people out directing traffic, because a big part of the problem as to why people are in this congestion is, yes, construction. We're doing a lot of that of all kinds, including transit. But it's also that people insist on driving into an intersection and sitting there when they know they can't make it through, and then they block the traffic. And so we're going to move to deploy more people to do that, and more construction hubs, as we call it, including the possibility of what we'll call a no-fly zone, where there are some times of the day when we just can't have that construction going on because it interferes too much. So it's something that we're trying to get on top of, but it's a busy city with a huge amount of construction, and that's a formula for congestion, and we just have to keep working to try and minimize it, albeit that the city is growing very rapidly.
Yeah, those blocked intersections, another pet peeve for sure. All right. Thank you, Mayor Tory. We really appreciate you joining us this morning. And I'll send you right over to Sid and Dee next.
Uh-oh.
It's Tory time. Mayor Tory, how you doing?
How are you doing, Sid? Are you all right there? And Dina, is he giving any trouble, that guy?
You know what? You might want to check his Twitter page, because he just posted something where he looked very happy. He's always happy to see you. We're happy to see you. Last time we saw you was Spirit of the Season at the Sheridan Center for our Christmas celebration.
Crowd out for that.
It was such a great crowd.
At least 8,000 people were out for that. Yeah,
you know what, though?
I think most of them were there to see Dina, because I asked them. But having said that, it's fine.
You pulled the electorate, did you, Mayor Tory? You pulled the electorate.
You know what, though?
I told you on the previous visit, maybe then, that when I was out knocking on doors, I mean, people enjoy our encounters very much. They do. They specifically raise it with me. So
they specifically,
clearly, yeah, they do. They tell me that they enjoy that, and especially that I'm prepared to poke a little bit of fun at you, which is richly deserved in your case.
The roasting.
Well, listen, I thoroughly enjoy when you're on. By the way, sorry, did I hear right? This is your 9th City of Toronto budget as mayor of the city?
Yes, you have one every year, and this is I'm entering in my ninth year in office. I completed 8 years, and I've been given 4 more.
Is this the time of year you go, why do I do this? Like this?
Well, your jobs. Let's face it. All the viewers out there, they probably have days where they go, "What could I have been thinking taking this job, or why do I have this job?" I mean, everybody, especially this time of year when it's kind of gray and cold and it's dark in the morning. But so there are days in this job, like any other one, where you say to yourself, like, and budget time is tough, because you know why? You've got to make choices. Just like people at home and watching have to make choices in their own family budgets, you have to make very difficult choices in the city's budget. What do you fund? How much? What don't you fund as much, perhaps? And I've tried very hard not to cut anything this year. But yeah, it's times like this when you do shake your head a little bit, but you do that in the privacy of your own office and no one sees you, so it's okay. I'm admitting it here on BT.
Over lunch.
It's just between Sid. It's just between you.
Yeah,
and
no one's
me,
watching.
okay?
It's just us. Go ahead.
Speaking of that, the Globes were on last night, the night before,
2 nights ago.
Do you actually allow yourself to sit down to a movie? And if so, are you like a Banshees of Inisherin guy? Or are you like an Avatar go to the theater guy? Or are you a stay-at-home and watch Elvis with the wife
Or is it just the Maltese Falcon and a loop?
There it is.
The truth is that I love going to a movie in a theater, because there's no experience quite like it. But I tend to only see movies in theaters at TIFF time, just because I don't have time. Yeah. And so what I now have fallen to doing, like a lot of people out there, I'm sure, watching, is I watch these series. So I happened upon the latest sort of Jack Ryan, over the holidays, and watched a few of those. And I've now watched a couple of the latest Yellowstones. And so I think a lot of other people, my watching habits have changed, and I just haven't had time to go to the movies. And I think movie theaters were shut down, but I hope people get back out. It's all part of, like, we're launching Winterlicious today, which a lot of viewers will have gone. Yay. It's a great deal you can get during the winter, and it's going to happen later in January, but reservations, I think, can maybe be made today. A lot of the theaters suffered during the pandemic, but so did the restaurants. They're back at maybe 70, 80% now, but they need us to get them the rest of the way back to 100%, because that means jobs and it means survival of these businesses. So movies have been a casualty for me too. It's partly time, and it's partly just the sort of you get out of the habit.
Thanks for spreading the word about Winterlicious. I love that and Summerlicious because you get to try restaurants you maybe otherwise couldn't afford for such great value.
That's a good deal.
That's it.
It is. But the movie theater experience, like, you got to go to the theater to see Avatar. I'm sorry. If you're at home, I saw it Friday. Like, not only are you supporting some local theaters here, but it's the only way to see it. So I completely agree with
And did you go to one of those places? I suspect you did, where you were sitting there and they bring you wine and all kinds of fancy food. That's the kind of place you go to, isn't it?
He's
you
saying
probably had a
the
driver
VIP.
take you there,
All right, so I like sushi during a movie. So sue me.
I never understood that because you can't see. You need stuff that you could just shovel in your face, right?
But Mayor Tory, back to the traffic thing. You brought up a point with Tam, the getting caught in the intersection thing. That alone, if you want to have another analytics discussion on how much time that wastes every commuter directly in the city, I got to listen. A free idea, Mayor Tory. Traffic cop, middle of the intersection. If that happens, small fine of $100,000 right on the spot.
Smart.
That'll rectify it in 2 seconds.
I'm not sure we'll do the fine part, but we are going to have more people deployed because, in the end, you can have all the technology you want. You can have all the warning signs and this and that. But in the end, it's a good old-fashioned person standing in the intersection pointing at you and saying, you are not coming into this intersection right now because you can't get through. And that is a big contributor to the kind of gridlock you do experience downtown, that plus construction. And I'm sorry for the construction, but we got to build the transit. We've got to build things like replacing 100-year-old water mains. And then we've got all the private construction of places for people to live. So, you're right. Somebody standing there just glowering at you and kind of going, don't you dare even think about going into that intersection. And a handsome fine would help. I mean, it does, definitely. But I'm not sure we could do 100,000. You could afford that.
That's not. No,
I mean,
that's
it looks like $1 million. Do you see this suit, Mayor Tory?
That's my movie watching budget. I can't afford that.
He's looking sharp today, and he does look like I wouldn't say $1 million, maybe 650,000.
Oh, that's a very specific price.
You got to put me in the penalty box for looking so good, Mayor Tory.
Your chats are priceless, but I'm going to tell you this. Speaking of traffic, it's time to throw to Steph Henry, who's monitoring traffic this morning. Do you mind doing the honors for us? Because I know you have broadcasting in your blood. Go for it, Mayor Tory. Throw it to Steph Henry.
Well, now it's time on BT to have Steph Henry update us on the traffic. Steph, over to you.